The average medical school debt without an undergrad degree is $202,000.
Damn.
The average medical school debt with undergrad is $250,000.
Damn.
By next year, 2024, the average debt will be $300,000.
Damn. Lord, Elizabeth, it's a big one.
Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey. Maybe that's Elizabeth.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I am your host, Dr. Nii, joined by
Dr. Renée, baby.
Hey, we are here. We're excited. Kids are off to school. Let's do this. We got 30 minutes to get this done. You ready?
Okay.
So we got a question that was submitted to us. Actually, they asked us the question as we were getting ready to leave for Ghana or as we landed in Ghana.
Right.
And it was a very thorough question. I just didn't have time to answer it. So what I asked them to do is write us a question and then write all the points that you want to get down, and then we will answer it on a show.
Yes.
Now,
So a long-time listener.
I love questions because it gives us the pulse. It gives us, it lets me know what people are thinking, right? And you know how sometimes they say, what's obvious to you may not be obvious to others. Mm-hmm. This question is something that I think we talk about a lot, and we go into depth, but I think there are times where we probably are missing the point and we go over people's head. And this question kind of discusses
Break it down.
how we get into and how we live our life from a lifestyle as well as from a locum tenens standpoint, how both of those things kind of merge. And for y'all who don't know what locum tenens is Latin for placeholder. And basically it's temporary staffing, right? You know how you ever heard of a temp nurse or a temp agency secretary for a company or what have you?
Yeah.
Hospitals, particularly in suburban and rural areas, they need people to work there because sometimes they may not have a fully staffed orthopedic surgeon or a hospitalist or an OB doc. So what they will do is they will go to a staffing company and say, hey, can you let us have an OB doc? Can you send us an OB doc who can work with us for 6 weeks or maybe even a year until the original OB doc finishes their maternity leave or whatever it may be? Mm-hmm. And the staffing agency says, yes.
I'll rent you a doc.
I'll rent you a doc.
Rent them spoons.
Yeah.
We serve them soup for free. Rent a spoons.
Rent them spoons and, rent a doc, whatever it is. That staffing agency talks with a doctor, an OB doc, and OB doc says, yeah, I'm available. I can go work at that hospital. How much you going to pay me?
Better go ahead and do that.
Staffing agency says, hey, we'll pay you X dollars. And the doc says, okay, yeah, I'll go work there. That doc goes and works at that hospital.
Yep.
That doctor is not employed by that hospital.
Nope.
That doctor is not employed by the staffing company.
Nope.
That doctor is basically
self-employed. Right.
And they have to pay for a lot of different things on their own. But more importantly, the things that they don't have to pay for is medical malpractice. That's usually covered by the staffing company.
Or the hospital.
And travel and hotel, your car, all those different things are kind of taken care of by the staffing company. Mm-hmm. You on your end, the doctor on his end or her end has to pay for their own health insurance. Mm-hmm. They have to pay for their own disability insurance and things like that. But people have been doing locum tenens for close to 50 years, 60 years.
Yeah, we've been doing locums.
Locums is something that is extremely common in other countries.
Yeah.
Very common in Ghana, very common in other countries where doctors work in this fashion.
Yeah.
But anyway,
but
we got a question
yes,
about this.
Just to say, we've been doing locums since what? I've been doing locums since 2011.
I've been doing locums since 2012.
Yeah.
And so now that puts us close to 11 years, 13 years of doing this. So we know what we're talking about.
Yep.
So we got a question from 2 ER docs. I'm going to read this question, and then we're going to jump into this. You ready?
I'm ready.
Like to hear it?
I like to hear it.
Here
you go.
So it says, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to consider our request. I and my business partner and friend, Kay, wanted to share a bit about our journey as physicians and why we are diligently working to think outside the box. Look at that. We're two dedicated Black emergency medicine doctors who grew up without much financial knowledge and privilege. I know what that's about. Mm-hmm. Along the way, we accumulated over $600,000 in student loans as we pursued our dream careers. We've been working tirelessly in clinical roles for years, hoping to strike a balance between work and family, a balance we unfortunately still have not yet achieved. Mm. We find ourselves still working through a mountain of debt, despite working more shifts with longer hours, often with inadequate compensation but plentiful in family sacrifices. You know how that goes.
Yeah, I know about that.
Yo, take another shift. Come on, take another shift. We'll pay you $300 more. Take another shift.
Pay you.
That's true. That's true. That is a
You're
good
lucky
point.
if the hospital pay you. You working for them.
We were hoping to find the holy grail of a balanced life, but that goal feels impossible in our current work landscape in medicine. Our wish is simple yet profound: to reclaim our lives and reclaim the practice of emergency medicine. With your help, we hope to turn this situation around and regain the control that seems to have slipped away. You know what? Alfred, give me some background music. Forming our own locums company is one way we are working to reclaim our independence. As a longtime fan of your podcast, the journey of you and your wife reclaiming your lives by thinking outside the box has been inspiring. We will be honored to receive some guidance from you on how to get started. Your support means more than words can express. And Dr. Nii, when are you going to drop Renee as the co-host?
Okay,
I think
that's
the
not.
show goes so
cut
much
the
better
music, Alfred.
without you.
No,
without her and stuff.
No,
I mean,
no, that's not part of the questioning. No.
Thank you for allowing us to share our story and for taking time to review our questions listed at the end of this message. We look forward to hearing your advice. Sincerely, TC and KJ. And just so y'all know, so y'all saw that question, right? This is like board review right here. Like, this is a long stem question, and then they got all these
What
questions
is the
about them.
next step
Hey,
in
yo,
management?
These questions underneath go from 1 to 13. Hey, can you provide a step-by-step breakdown of locums? Can you provide the companies that you use? How do you recruit and negotiate with hospitals? Should we hire anyone to recruit? How do you plan? But these are great questions, actually.
Yes.
Anybody
Yes.
who's interested in working individually as a locum tenens doc, or maybe deciding that, you know what, I want to get a whole bunch of doctors and kind of contract them out to work at a hospital.
Like we did.
Like we did.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know how they did it.
Yeah.
And this is a great question. So listen, we are going to answer these questions, but listen, we got to pay some bills. All right. So how about we take a quick break and then we will come right back. Hold up. Before we continue, to all my day ones, and you know each and every one of you who you are, thank you for rolling with the show from jump. And to the new listeners, welcome. What's good? Where y'all been? I want y'all to stay a while. All right. So look, I'm trying to build a community here and I need your help. So with whatever app you're listening to this show right now, I want you to click the subscribe button. Then I want you to go over to Apple Podcasts and I want you to rate and review the show. And you may be asking, how does this help? The way how it helps is by helping the show to grow and rise up in the rankings so that it's easier for new people to discover the show. Now, what's in it for you is at least once a week, I'm going to be going through these reviews. I'm going to pick a lucky reviewer and I'm going to give that person an opportunity to have a 15-minute session with me where we could talk about anything from personal finance, getting your money right, to just shooting the you know what about the show. So listen, remember, all I need you to do is subscribe and then rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts. Let's get on with the episode. Peace. And we are back. So listen, we got a question that we're trying to answer from TC and KJ. Basically, how y'all start a locums company. Tell us everything from, you know,
Why you did it.
from the rooter to the tutor.
I bet we've eaten everything on the pig from the rooter to the tutor. Bang, 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 daddy.
Everything we want to know. And they submitted a whole bunch of questions. So what we're going to do, guys, is this, you're listening to this episode on a Friday. What we're going to do is we're going to go through this in multiple episodes. We're going to put out at least like 5 or 6 episodes where we answer these questions because you can't answer all of their questions in one episode.
Yeah, 13
And when I
questions.
tell you all of these questions, these are all really good, whether you're a medical student, whether you are a resident, whether you're an attending, if you are a nurse, you're in nursing school, if you're a respiratory, it doesn't matter. You need to know how this works because there's temporary staffing in all of your respective specialties and all of your respective professions. So you need to know how this works and maybe you can do this on your own. So
But before we do that, just to let everybody know, I know you all are listening on the audio experience, but there is a video experience. So now I don't know if you're driving, and I'm not telling you to watch while you're driving because we know you would never watch videos while you're driving. But if you want to watch what's going on and see the greatness of Alfred, our video editor,
the magic.
then
magic,
the
guys.
link is right in the show notes, like right below where this audio
Yeah, man, we
experience
like
is going on.
that y'all listen to the show, but you need to be watching, all right?
Yeah, and subscribe on YouTube.
And subscribe, man. We need more subscribers. Come on. I've been trying to be nice about it before, and it's just like, yo, like, come
They're
on.
gonna be showing up.
Come on.
thousands.
Subscribe, y'all, right now. Subscribe. Just go to YouTube, subscribe, and then go back and listen to the audio. Thank you. Move on. Let's go. Dang. I'm making Alfred do all this good work, and y'all not appreciating it. Come on.
Alfred gonna come through this video. I'm telling you.
Well, anyway, listen real quick, guys. The question is from 2ER Docs. So we want to say shout out to them. They've been longtime listeners of the show. Let's jump into answering this question, but let's focus on pain points, because I think that's the key right now. Like, what would cause people to do locums? Because right now, the way in which I think most people are expecting to go through their careers is they finish whatever schooling that they do, and then they may do some postgraduate work, whether it's residency or some type of apprenticeship, internship, and then you go and you just work. But when you're working, you are employed by somebody, whether it's a hospital or private practice or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Why would two doctors who are a trauma surgeon and an OB, why would they want to get into locums? And as you said earlier, we've been doing this for 13 years, 14 years now, and we ain't looking back.
No.
I don't want to go back to being employed unless I absolutely have to.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't stupid. Like if we had to go back to put money, put food on the table, we do it.
Yeah.
But that's
But
not
if
how
I
we
don't
roll.
have to, then I don't want to. And it sounds like these two ladies, really have their reasons for doing it, which they mentioned in the questions, that they really haven't struck the balance between, family life and work life.
Yeah, that's the biggest. Those are three things.
One.
So I saw three things that they mentioned: hard to balance, work, and balance. I just want to let y'all know real quick, there's no such thing as balance. So just so you know, but they also mentioned lack of financial knowledge and privilege, right?
Yeah.
And then they also said they just want to kind of gain control of their lives.
Yeah.
But let's dive into the balance part, right? Which is hard. Like, they're having a hard time balancing work and family.
Yeah.
The working more shifts, all of those different things. So, I've seen it. I don't know if you've seen it in the OB world, but I've seen it where, you just, the hospital needs someone to cover a shift, and you've already put in your shifts that you have to work for the month.
Right.
Whether that's whatever it may be, 7 shifts or 10 shifts or 14 shifts. And then they say, hey, we need someone to do an extra shift. There's going to be times when it's not paid. There's going to be times when they entice you by giving you something else, whether that's a day off or they may pay you more or what have you. So I just want to let people know that depending on the situation that you're in. So for me, when we first started paying off our debt and we say, hey, we're going to pay off our debt as much as possible, we were just trying to stack cheese. We were just trying to stack cash. And I would take those extra shifts. And those extra shifts would equate to more money, right? Maybe I would get an additional $500 per shift or something like that.
Right.
After
This is when
taxes.
you were employed.
Yeah, this is when I was employed. This is like 2014, 15, 16, when we're trying to pay off debt. But the more shifts I worked, there's a trade-off, right? The more shifts I worked, the less time I spent with you.
Right.
The less time I spent with other family. And I think working more shifts is great for one thing, which is if you want to continue to sharpen your skills as a clinician, it's great. And everything comes at a sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Your mental health, your physical health, your relationships and so forth. That's just the way how it is. You can't do both at the same time. So, if you have debt and if you are trying to save for something, then I think to some extent it kind of makes sense. But if you're not in that situation anymore and you're just kind of coasting.
Right. Then what's the point of doing all that? And to be clear, there was a point at which we were employed and we were doing locums at the same time. So I know we mentioned earlier, I've been doing locums since 2011, you since 2012.
We were dipping twice.
Right. But there was a point in 2013 that we were employed and we were doing locums at the same time. That's when we were trying to pay off our debt. So to your point, after a while, it becomes a question of, okay, well, why am I living like this?
Yeah.
Why am I taking these extra shifts? Why am I working more and not necessarily being very efficient with the way that I make my money, especially if I'm sacrificing seeing my family? And at the time we didn't have kids, but we were trying to make some kids, going through IVF and all of that. And half the time I think we needed to go through IVF because we weren't in the same state at the same time.
Hey guys, so we made a plan when we were trying to pay off our debt in 2014 that we weren't going to take on any additional debt.
Yeah.
So when we started in vitro fertilization, it's like 25 stacks. And we're like, we're not going into debt to do this. So I was working employed those 2 weeks, and then I will have 2 weeks off where I would go and do locums. I had to travel. There were a couple of times where we do the IVF cycle, and Renee would, what do you call it? I get it wrong.
Would basically,
because I'd be saying diagrams instead of diaphragms.
No, there's no diaphragms. Diaphragms is birth control. We're not trying to. No, anyway, no.
Let me not mansplain it. You go in.
No, there were times that I would actually break through. I would ovulate before it was time for me to ovulate. And then my doctor's like, okay, just go have intercourse. And I'm like, I can't because my husband's out in Wisconsin trying to pay for this.
Yeah.
So
that happened multiple times.
Yes.
And that's an opportunity that's just gone.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, like, you don't get your money back for that.
No, you ain't no money back.
Yeah.
Money back.
So all of those meds and those things that you were pumping yourself up with, like, I hate to say go to waste, but the ultrasounds in the morning, all of those things.
It just goes to waste. No baby.
And you have to pay for a new cycle.
Yeah.
So you can see this, it started to add up and it started to get really frustrating. And you start to realize that, wait, money can't solve everything, right? Because some people are like, well, you just work more and then you do more IVF cycles. It's like, well, what if money ain't working and the IVF cycle ain't working?
What if working is interfering with what you actually want to do?
What is what you're supposed to be doing? It's supposed to be sideways in the bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the answer.
Excuse me?
But that's what it came down to, right? But because we are doing extra shifts and so forth.
Right. We got to be in the same room at the very least. But that speaks to work-life balance, right? Because even if we did have children at that point, right, which it sounds like these ladies do have children, maybe married and things like that, that work is actually starting to interfere with the other parts of their life, i.e. there's no work-life balance. And then they mention the whole financial thing, right? Because, okay, so fine, already you're sacrificing your family life, but now you're like looking at your bank account and you're like, yeah, I don't know if this is worth it because I'm not even making as much.
I'm going to get some stats because, a brother like to do some stats.
I know you do like stats.
So let's do this. Lack of financial knowledge, the average medical school debt without an undergrad degree, right? This is just med school only. The average debt is $202,000. Dang. If you throw in undergrad.
Let me give you a Kevin Hart. Damn.
Yo, Alfred, can you put that in, yo? Please. That shit was hilarious, yo.
Damn.
But I feel like that was fake. Was that real?
I don't know, but Don Cheadle's.
I'm 56 years old. Damn. I'm sorry.
He looked hurt.
If y'all know me, I love me some Don Cheadle. Yo, Don Cheadle, especially in Devil in a Blue Dress.
Okay, but you just listed one movie.
But I like him in other Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That was good.
He said, why you leaving with me?
What happened? Easy, look, if you ain't want him killed, why'd you leave him with me?
If you wanted them alive, why are you leaving
him
with
and
me?
Denzel, why'd you leave him with me?
Okay, all right. Remember, we're not doing movie reviews right now. Renee, let's jump back in.
Okay.
Focus. So the average medical school debt with undergrad is $250,000. 73% of medical school grads have debt in some form or fashion.
Right.
Check this out. At the current pace at which inflation as well as school tuition is increasing, by next year, 2024, the average debt will be $300,000.
Ooh,
damn.
Lord, Elizabeth, it's a big one.
Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey. Maybe that's Elizabeth.
The median average salary for a doc is $208,000, right? Average salary. And you throw in the fact that depending on what your demographics are, if you are African American, if you are Hispanic, if you are Native American, the majority of how you pay for medical school will be through loans,
student loans,
which follows you through not through medical school, only through medical school, but we're talking about residency as well as
attending. Yep.
That affects what specialty you're going to choose. We've already discussed this in previous episodes, and it also has a place as to where you're going to practice also.
Right.
So money plays a huge role in what you do as a physician.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention, if you look at the statistics, depending on what your background is, if you are part of the sandwich generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that not only are you're becoming this professional in healthcare, you're doing good supposedly, but now you have to take care of your aging parents.
Yep.
And then you have kids, so you have to take care of your kids. So it's very, sometimes a lot of people are
you
like,
gotta take care of your cousin.
right. So a lot of times people will be like, well, why is it not a doctor? A doctor making $200,000 or, a nurse making this much. What they tripping about? Their salary is good. And it's like, not all.
Yeah,
the
not
math,
when you're maintaining two households.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing, right?
Yeah.
So if you have like medical school that keeps becoming higher and higher and higher and becoming a major portion of how you're getting your salary, of course, long-lasting wealth is going to be very elusive. So I think it's a big issue. I think it's a really, really big issue.
Absolutely. And then not to mention, right, like, I think what happens is, from these two ladies' point of views is that they see that they're working and the way that they're making money is not efficient.
It's not efficient at all.
And they obviously have been exposed to locums in some way, shape, or form. Whether they did it themselves or not, I'm not sure, or whether or not they've worked.
In ER, it's very...
Right. It's very commonplace to see locum docs. So they might have either done locums on their own or seen other docs and realized, wait a minute, like I could be making money much more efficiently and it won't necessarily impact my personal life so negatively anymore. And so why not? Like right now, I'm just seeing the benefits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and in ER, they always ask for extra shifts.
Right.
And you may not get the big bonus that you want to get for doing an additional shift. But if you worked at that same facility, you know how they do the memes right now where they'll show they'll show social media memes where they'll show like a nurse standing right next to another nurse. They're doing the same job, but one of them is a traveling nurse versus one is an employed doc or employed nurse. And there's a huge difference in salary or a huge difference in pay and so forth. And it's like, well, but that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
So that's part of the reason why I think a lot of people are really considering this type of lifestyle is if you throw in all of these points together, it's like, well, if I can't really change the system, then I might as well play the system. Right.
Well, it's not even play the system. It's, you know what? The system doesn't even need to be changed so much because the system actually does work like this. Right? Like that is how the system works. That's how locums can exist, is that it actually exists like that. We already know that locum docs make at least 33% more than your employed docs. And we even calculated with me, right? Like if you look at what the average OB salary is, right? Someone who works 5, maybe 6 days a week, maybe they're on call, 3-4 times a month versus me who's locums and I work, 1 weekend per month. I make almost half of what your average OB doc makes. Right? So if I just work one more weekend a month, I might actually double.
And just
right, or I might actually be more than double that for what? Well, excuse me, double of what I'm making, which actually might turn out to be more than your median or your average OB doc.
Well, but remember, there's always that square root person. That person always says, well, in exchange for getting 33% more, you're always constantly on the road. And you would say, Dr. Renee.
I would say that's actually not necessarily true.
Look at her. Let the record show.
Let the record show, okay? No, because that is not necessarily true, right? Because depending on where you live, depending on how you do locums, you're not always on the road necessarily. So you can do locums very locally. And there was actually at one point when I was living in Atlanta, actually, I was doing locums pretty locally, right? So, yeah, I mean, the flexibility that it gives you I think is amazing, but the efficiency with which you make more money by working 36 days a year, making half of what your full-time person makes, I think that's pretty efficient.
I tell you right now, if I could convince all docs to just consider locums, it's not for everyone, but if I could convince them to do more, I think they would be a little bit more happier. I think there'd be some initial trepidation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where do I get my health insurance from, and how do I do my 401k?
That's the easy stuff.
You know, but I think for the most part, like, because you mentioned the flexibility, like that for me is a big issue. Is I like to be very flexible with my schedule. So now that I have kids, obviously married, like I can't just do 2 weeks away in a hotel.
Right.
Just that's impossible. I can't do that. So, you know, I do something where I will work 7 days, take a couple days off, and then come back and hit it again. So I remain plugged in. I'm still dad. I'm Dr. Dad when I'm at home. I'm husband, all those different things. I'm available.
Yep.
But that's what works for me. If I was employed, let's just say what I want to do, that balance is really to the whim of what the hospital or what my supervisor, quote unquote, decides to do.
I tell you this,
And
you
I
wouldn't be going to Ghana for no 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, and I just don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with that. And I think to some extent, basically what you're hearing from this is the question from TC and KJ is, and I think what you hear from a lot of docs and even people who are in different professions, like, I went to school for a long ass time.
Yeah.
I got the receipts, man,
to
show for this. And now you're telling me I'm just a high paid employee?
Yeah.
I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying that it has to be all like, you know, peaches and cream, but I'm just saying, like, if you put in all this work, if you got all of this knowledge just for someone to tell you what to do, I don't know. That to me, that ain't it.
Yeah.
That ain't it. And that's why for me, I'm like, look, I'm going to check out right here. I still like operating. I still like taking care of people. I still like being in the system. But you gave me another option. I'm going to take that other option.
Right.
And this way, I'm going to stay right here.
Well, the other part of it is, right, the practice versatility, right? So in OB, we can practice different parts of OB and, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
For me, I like being a hospitalist. I like being an OB hospitalist. I didn't want to be in the office anymore. And doing locums has allowed me to have plenty of...
You did not like that clinic life.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that clinic life at all. And so it just gave me an opportunity to do that.
It was very intrusive. I didn't realize how intrusive clinic life is. Like, you think, oh, you just wake up, you know, you start seeing patients at 9 o'clock and clinic is done at 5 and that's it. But you don't think.
Inbox.
I was waiting for my Drie à pois. I'm reading all my Haitian food that you talking about. I'm like, yeah, I want to get all this. And you're like, no, I got to do notes.
I got to do notes.
Wasn't you in clinic? Stop at 5.
Yo, listen, let me tell you something. You finish, like, at 4:59, you finish everything in your inbox. At 5:02, your inbox got 40 freaking messages. You like, what?
So when you say inbox, what are you talking about?
Like nurses, questions from patients. It's just like, oh my gosh, like the questions never stop. It's like the perpetual email address or email inbox.
Yeah.
And it just goes on and on and on.
You're responsible for answering it. You can't just ignore it.
Right. And so for me, it was, I didn't want to deal with that anymore. I wanted to be at the hospital, do what I had to do, see the patients, deliver the babies, go to the OR and then be done. Like, I don't want any inbox. I don't want any of that, like, follow-up stuff that I had to do when I was working in the clinic. And I know for you, you've had
so for me, so Grady's level 1 trauma center, right? This is knife and gun club, specific type of population. There's not another type of trauma center within a 100-mile radius, right? So we are the end-all, be-all, that is it, right? So when I went down to Miami, it's the same thing.
Right.
But this was in fellowship. There were level 2 trauma centers that were locally around the area and some level 1 trauma centers. So when I did locums, I got an opportunity to see private practice trauma surgery.
What?
Yeah, that sucked. So basically,
I didn't know there was a thing.
I will never ever do that again. I never understood
private
that.
Practice
they
trauma.
probably got rid of that at that place. This is 10 years ago. But basically, imagine, you take call and you are a private practice doc or you are hospital employed.
Right.
And the way how, if you see rib fractures or you see gunshot wounds or you take care of a small bowel obstruction, everything that occurs during that time, you take that patient on with you.
Oh.
Right. So as you're,
So you don't pass them off.
You don't pass them off to there wasn't a dedicated trauma service.
Okay, gotcha. That's what.
Or at least there wasn't a dedicated unified trauma service where one person is managing, all of the trauma patients, and then maybe another person may be managing the general surgery patients, which I think now that we're 10 years, 15 years into this system of acute care surgery, you were starting to realize that you got to separate. You can't have general surgery and trauma all at the same time. It just causes too much.
Right.
So so I got a chance to see that. I ain't like that at all. So I was like, don't get that experience out of here. That was in Idaho.
Right.
Yeah, that was in Idaho, which is low-key beautiful.
Yeah.
But I just didn't want to do that experience. And then I got to do level 1, but it was mainly blunt, right? So this was like in a rural area where you see a lot of grannies falling. You see a lot of farm accidents. That was okay also. That was okay also. And then I eventually ended up just kind of being in the middle, and obviously the majority being blunt, but it just worked for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's been the practice variability that I got to see really early on in my career that kind of put me onto where I am right now. And I feel very comfortable now because I saw it so early in my career.
Right.
So I know what I like. I know what I don't like.
Right. You can choose, like, do I want to be in the inner city and be dealing with, all kinds of stabbings and shootings and gangs and things like that.
And that's what Stephen was talking about, Dr. Stephen Bradley. If you check out our most recent episode where we had him on the show, that was the dilemma that he was dealing with was he did his training at University of Chicago for anesthesiology.
Right.
And now he's trading it in to go work in Florida where it's a completely different population, a different mechanism of what's going on. And there's this thought process of like, should I be at this other facility, level 1 knife and gun club where they really need me, or should I be here? And I just say, listen, in order to have the best impact to society, you have to be at your best.
Yes.
And you don't necessarily have to be in that situation, knife and gun club, to be impacting society or to be impacting people who are close to you or look like you or what have you in order to have that effect. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. And like you said, it's important for us as docs to, at the very least, have that autonomy to be able to, pick where we want to work. Preferably not necessarily have it only dictated by how much money we're going to make, how much money we owe in our student loans and things like that. Yeah. I think that that's really important. And for us to be able to, figure out like how we're going to spend time with our families and what that necessarily means for just kind of our personal life, And I know there's so many other reasons that people do locums. But for us, those were kind of like the big
Casey and TC, they asked us why we do it.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah,
that's why we do locums.
But there is a little bit more. We actually, if you guys go down to the show notes, there'll be a link there. There's a few more reasons why you actually should consider locums if you are considering locums. So go down.
There's about
to the
7
show
reasons.
Notes.
Yeah, there's about 7 reasons why I think right now, or why we think you should be considering locums. Right? If you go to the link, you'll get this PDF. It's amazing. Check it out. It's a quick read. Ain't no test at the end.
Maybe.
But it's just something that we think would be very helpful, because I think a lot of people hear about locums and they instantly turn it off, or if they are in residency or maybe they're early on in their career, somebody else is telling them don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. And we did locums right out of residency and fellowship.
Yeah, I remember calling Dr. Okoli. Dr. Okoli from surgical oncology, he was available for me. I called him like at 2:00 in the morning. I had a perforated duodenal ulcer, and it was posterior. And most of the time, it's anterior, right? It's on the top portion of the portion of the duodenum that you can see when you're looking right into it. This, I had to do a bunch of mobilizations of the duodenum. I had to cochlearize, all those things that I can do really well. But at the time,
you cocky as hell.
I'm not cocky. I'm very confident, and I can do it.
Cocky as hell. Keep going.
And I'm a surgeon. Come on.
Of course. So then you cocky as hell.
I'm not cocky. It's confidence.
Anyway, whatever.
There's some who can do and some who can't.
All right, what did Dr. Okoli say?
But I called him like at 2:00 in the morning and I asked him a question. He was there. He was tired and he was like, no, anytime you need me, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
This is literally like 3 months into doing locums. I had just finished fellowship and he was there.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing I think a lot of people get nervous about. It's like, oh, well, I'm practicing by myself. I don't have help. Is anybody going to be there for me? Look, you'd be surprised. Listen, residency did you well.
Yep.
Fellowship did you well. And usually your attendings are just a phone call away.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say I've had that same experience. Usually I'll call Dr. Brugge.
Or me.
Sometimes if it has something to do with bowel. Or maybe like a wound, something. But yeah, no, it's true. Like people think, oh no, you're going to be alone. You're not going to have any mentoring. You're not going to X, Y, and Z. And there's always somebody who's a phone call away. You just have to know how to use your resources and just not be afraid to make that phone call.
Correct. All right, y'all. So remember, these episodes, we're going to get more in depth with the questions that TC and KJ sent to us about locums, and we're going to release them every Friday. We're going to do this about 6 weeks. And I think you guys will get a really great sense of locums, what it means, and even some of the specifics on how to work for yourself as an independent contractor. Like you're working by yourself or working as a doc with a hospital versus just saying, hey, maybe I get a whole team of doctors and we just contract with each other and we go and provide services at different hospitals. But you're going to hear that all on this series that's going to come out on Fridays, all right? Make sure you check the show notes for the link on the PDF that talks about the top 7 reasons why we think you guys should be considering locums. And that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to say? Any parting words you want to say before we be out?
Now consider locums.
Locum life. All right, y'all. We're going to catch you guys on the next Q&A section.
Peace.
Peace.